Go!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to none other than Seniors. We join ourselves today here at Oulton Park, track that needs to be maybe introduced to some, because this isn't one of the most known English tracks out there, the UK tracks, but it's one that holds a sort of near and dear place in the hearts of many. It's been established in the motorsport scene for a very long time, and it's earned its stripes. And while it doesn't always get the highlight that, in my opinion, it deserves on the racing calendar, it's one that is going to be gracing our calendars here for SIMSeniors tonight. We're on round 8 of the calendar here, and we have just got 2 more rounds to go, folks. It's tonight at Oulton Park. It's then following that the Nürburgring, so I believe that's the GP variant, and then the Red Bull Ring to finish the season off. So we're running out of time for some of our championship battles to really be contested. And with that, we've got some highlight drivers that we want to take a bit of attention to. Of course, we have the championship protagonists in each of the classes, bronze, silver, and gold, that we need to discuss. And we've got pretty much a heated battle across all 3. And this is where things are going to be quite exciting indeed for us coming up. So as we are about to jump into the race, or into the qualifying more specifically, let us know, of course, if you are looking out for any particular drivers, if there's anyone that you are looking to especially support, and more than anything, if you are excited for what is to come this evening. We're about to go trackside, but in the interim, folks, this is where it gets fun. This is where round 8 kicks off, and I'd say it's time we joined our racers. Let's have it, shall we? We're on board, first things first, with the bronze class cars. Of course, the first 10 minutes of qualifying are dedicated to them exclusively, and then after the next 10 minutes is going to be silver and then gold for the final 10. We're going to see the initial benchmarks coming out from our bronze group. It's going to be led by Daniel Groich, and he is currently 4th in the championship, but is within striking distance of getting onto the podium. Only 4 points split him and Randy Zimmer in the orange Ferrari. Rich Arscombe stands a little bit further ahead with 159 points, so like Groich before him, is quite a close proximity to his championship rivals. And we'll have to, of course, see how he can hold that one up. Arscombe in the gold, black and gold Aston Martin, as we see him careening through. It's going to be Watertower and into Druids now. They carries a lot of the same DNA as tracks with the likes of Brands Hatch. Oulton Park does. I mean, you've got of undulation, you've got going through what could argue is a forest section, and then you've got sort of an open, sweeping element of the course. I mean, this start-finish section is iconic in my mind, and it takes me back to many a time visiting this track, say virtually. It's certainly one for the history books and one for one for my heart more than anything. So let's see how we get on. Groich is going to be leading, and let's take it on board with him as he can sweep through the tight cambering right-hander, that shell, before making his way down to the chicane here. Britain's designed to slow the cars down a little bit before they crest over the hill, and going over the hilltop now into the second chicane. It could very well be a straight shot, but then that would make Knickerbrook very difficult to negotiate and a little bit too dicey for some of the cars, especially given that this isn't a top safety certification track. You've got to be some elements to temper the speed of the cars in the case of an accident. But here we go, down to Druids here. It's not the longest track in the world, but it's got plenty of character. The Oulton Park Palmer Sport adds all up around the racetrack, but initial benchmark now coming through from Groch as he crests through Deer Leap, and that's going to be a 35.3 initial time, but Craig Holmes immediately going to blow that one out of the water as he's been quite a formidable runner so far. 35.0 from Alex North, and then Wayne Bowler with a 34.1. Oh, a couple of the All-Stars making their way into the top steps here in qualifying to open things up. There we see some drivers who, of course, know their place as far as quali goes. They really can bring the hammer down in quali. Here's Sean Murphin up to the line, 35.1. Here's Randy Zimmer. Mentioned him briefly earlier, third place in the championship. Now, how can he translate this into qualifying? We know Zimmer to be one that just runs his races to himself, keeps things fairly on the straight and narrow, and it's the 34.8, so good initial runs here from the entire field. Bowler leads by a significant margin, but Bowler, who stands in 6th in the championship, is a driver that we know has pace, but it can't always translate. We've said this many, many times, but quali and race are two different beasts. You can master one without the other, and it will be apparent. And it will come to bite you. Struggling quali? And try as you might, you've still got a lot of work to do, extra, to make up positions. Struggle in the race, and you will be hemorrhaging speed quickly once you're having to fight and dice with other cars. Here is Craig Holmes coming for a second bite of the cherry. Can he break a 34.1? He gets a 34.2, though it's a major improvement, but only in time. Alex North, meanwhile, gets himself up into 3rd place with a 34.7. And I gotta say, looking real sharp in his Porsche right now. Am I going crazy, or has he had a little bit of an update to his livery here? Let me know. Because that car is looking very nice. Unfortunately, a couple of the other drivers on the track right now, they're not exactly making up the same time. We saw a few drops from Zimmer and Murphin. So, Murphin trying to get into the 34s. Which means that we can reasonably predict the 33s are very much in the grasp of the golds, if not maybe the silvers. As we are halfway through bronze quali. We have 36 racers joining us on the course today. And 12 of those are going to be bronze. So, what a nice field to look forward to. Actually, no, minor correction. Stuart Holmes just on the track, still yet to set a time, so make that 13. My mistake. 13 drivers when you include Holmes, although still has yet to put one down. Let's see if we can link it up here. A 35.5 is his best, but that was an invalid. That would put him around P8. We're seeing new times coming in at the top. Here is going to be just behind. There will be Wayne Bowler comes up to the line. 33.1. Unfortunately, still no time there from Holmes. But 33.1. I said that 33s were possible for the other classes. Bowler's only gone and smashed a second out of his previous record. Holmes has gone through the 34.0. Mike Foxall, meanwhile, 34.3. So it's getting quite congested, if I do say so, at the top step of the field. Desi is unfortunately going to invalidate the very last corner there at Lodge, and he's ended up retiring back into the pits, hopefully briefly, because he's running out of time to actually get something on the board that is competitive with the others on the field. Same that can be said for Stuart Holmes with a 39.8 currently, but no valid time technically posted. Here is Murphin making his way through now. That's going to be sweeping round. Into the two chicanes now of Britons and Hislops. Nicely executed there from Murphy. Now out through Clay Hill. Keeping the car nice and balanced. You can see a little bit of the rotation there, but even when avoiding the BMW stricken in the side, that's going to be a clean move for the McLaren. Into Lodge Corner, then Deer Leap. Okay, this little section here is part of why I don't think we're going to be seeing the likes of Formula cars on these tracks anytime soon. The ground clear is just not happening. But Murphy with a very impressive 34.4. Excellent lap. Here's another one going for a shot at glory here. So we've got 60 seconds left before the silver class cars make an appearance. And it looks like Nisbet is going to retire out of this one. Going to abandon ship and abandon lap. Heads back into the pits inevitably. And that is him done. Desi's only going to get 38.2, so no improvement. Best he's going to have is P12. Meanwhile, there's another driver that I want to focus on, as we can see Daniel Groch coming up to the end of his lap. It will be Stuart Holmes, as it looks like he might have a time on the boards in the last moments of the session. One can only hope. One can only hope here. Here we go. Here is Gruch up to the line. 34.2. So third place. Here is Holmes, though. Making a heck of an improvement and getting it legal on the boards. It's P10. And with not a second too soon, he has made it the last surviving, or the last standing driver. But here we go. There is going to be the order of the silvers now all coming through as the bronzes make their last ditch efforts to improve on time here. Here comes Craig Morrison. And it is a minor discrepancy. No improvement, sadly. Best he's going to say is P9. Randy Zimmer going to head into the pits. And that's close of business for him as well. Last couple of cars here in bronze before we see ourselves head over to silver and change our focus ever so slightly. Seriously impressed, though, with Wayne Bowler. 33.1. Smashed it right out of the park. The stars clearly aligning for that run. Okay, we asked, he delivered. And I am still gobsmacked by that performance. Looks like it just came together. The magic happened on that fateful run. But here we go. Looking over the next side of the aisle now. It's going to be here with Lenatus leading. There's a characteristic early jump on the quali. Lenatus is going to lead the charge for silver as we get this next bout of qualifying underway. I want to make a minor correction as well. We are up to 37 cars now. So now it's going to be a little bit more chaotic at the start. Smoothly does it. Key with Oulton Park here, especially when you have some of these little chicanes and multiple sections flowing into each other, is you need to minimize any kind of tire scrub. And while still you want to leverage the maximum amount of grip, this is a track that rewards momentum. The undulation, the ups and downs of the track, the vertical change means that if you can hold on to your speed by any means necessary, then absolutely take the measures you need to do so. It's why you see not everyone going for those clipping points, or going for those clipping points to minimize their line. Making sure that no matter what, momentum is preserved. Especially, see, like right here, you have that brief crest just coming out of Druids. That is emblematic of this track. Because when you get to the sharper inclines and declines, Your ability to keep your speed is handsomely rewarded. We see Leonatus get a 35.0, but that's immediately going to be eclipsed by Hamby in the background. 33.860, extremely impressive run. Let's see what some of the others have to say about it. Felix Wildner coming up to the line in his BMW M4. 33 to beat, 34.6 but an invalid, so no go here, I'm afraid. Simon Eade now up to the 9 in his Porsche. It's a 35.1. What about we see from James Payton in his McLaren? And to this day, I will still think it was checkered AMG, but that's the past. This is now 34.0, 4th position. Very impressive. Only driver to get a 33 in silver, though, is going to be Paul Hamby, currently on the back of Leonatus and trying to close the gap. Leonatus taking his initial feeler lap and making the most of it, as he's now already a second up on his Delta. Long as he can get into the 34s, the low 34s and high 33s ideally is where you want to be. No one has seriously touched Bowler's 33.1 though, which is still insanity to me. Holmes even managed to get pretty close with a 33.5, but I see that ceiling will rapidly be closing if the deltas from Leonatus are anything to go by. Hamby's trying to square off some time as well, but in the wake of the Nismo, can't quite get the power fully down. Here is Leonatus up to the line. He's over a second improved, and it's a 33.8. So that's going to push him up a little bit, but only to get knocked back down a peg once again. Hamby gets a 33.7. So close, but no dice. Meanwhile, James Payton looking very healthy on this lap here as he comes into Druids, and it's a smooth operation. 33.165 just came through on the docket. That's going to be from Pedro Serrano in his BMW. Beautiful driving. How are the rest of the field going to respond? Here is Payton coming out of Lodge Corner and looking like a very good run on the exit. 33.2, so that's enough for third place between Bowler and Holmes over in bronze, but still no dice. Not yet. Not quite got it. We have a limited population of silver drivers tonight. Looks like we have about 10. So 11 when you can factor in Hellstrom, who has yet to set a time here, but it's so far so risky. So we're going to see a couple of drivers bow out of their runs at this stage already. You can see Serrano just in the foreground as he is going to continue to push for a new fastest. Let's see what he's got here, as he's currently a 10th up. It's all out how he comes out of Lodge. 33.0 may be on the cards. Is he going to be able to do it? He improves by exactly a 10th of a second, but there's going to be one more. Hellstrom, we just flicked away over him, but he's gone literally from last to first. 32.9. Beautiful lap. Absolute chef's kiss. No notes. Excellent. Few more cars now making their way through. Here is going to be Eade. 34.1. Large improvement. Gets himself up into P11. Few more cars still need to get some serious improvements down. For example, Eero currently sat in P19 overall and P11 in class. He needs to get a move on relatively soon, otherwise he's going to be in some serious trouble when it comes to race time. 3 minutes, meaning about 2 laps left for the racers currently adorning this racetrack. It's a little bit uncomfortable now, as we have quite a lot of the bronze and silver so occupying the same space. Of course, silver has a bit more of an advantage. You do see those times between bronze and silver being quite close. So we'll definitely be seeing some commingling in race trim. Eero needs to get a low 34 or high 33 to be considered competitive, or at least put himself in with the rest of the order. Ideally, he wants to be in a mid to low 33. But we'll see what's possible for him here. He's about a second up, which will put him just into the 33s here. That'll be enough for about P10 if he can keep this up. Final corner here. Here's going to be Lodge. Little bit of bump on the exit, but still keeping it nice and clean. Up to the line here. What's it going to be at the 33.987? So that's just enough for P11. I know Hero's got a bit more in the tank, because we're seeing the average of the class be around a mid-33. He's definitely got more in the tank to give. Question is, will he be able to execute in time? Because we are only 80 seconds away. Time is of the essence here. But a lot of drivers have admittedly decided to cut their losses. And decided enough's enough. Hellstrom, I think, justified in being content with his lap. First 32 of the night. Heads into the pits. Wildner, Hamby, Eid, all going to be following suit. Where the rest of the field is going to end up landing themselves remains to be seen. Stick on board with Robert Homer for the time being. As 30 seconds away, we'll start seeing the qualifiers. And yep, qualifiers for gold are all lined up at the pit exit. They're all itching to go for a run here. Here is Sean O'Neill, crosses into the 33s for 33.8. Will there be the same magic, the same improvement? Minor time improvement, but unfortunately, in terms of position, it's negligible. We have just 10 seconds left out of time before, and here we go. We're going to now start seeing the gold cars all go for it. They make their way out of the exit just in line with Old Hall Corner. Then merge before heading into the Cascades. Worth mentioning, folks, before we continue, if there are any breaks, a little bit scratchy on the throat, so I will be making liberal usage of the cough button, as did a lot of commentary over the weekend, a little bit scratchy on the throat, as we say. So, final 10 minutes of qualifying. Looking like we have got plenty of fight out of a lot of our drivers. So the question is, who's going to be the one to take it all? Now, I want to see how our bronze and silver drivers will fight with each other when it comes to the race, but in terms of silver championship, Peyton currently leads with 173 points. Linatus is going to be just behind with 167. 158 is going to be for Hamby, one of the early heroes of the qualifying. Although ends up rescinding himself to P9. But now it's time to see the top brass do it. The gold class, the creme de la creme of SIMSeniors. And leading the charge is going to be Max Grosges. Grosges is an interesting case because he currently stands P2 in the championship. And he's got one of the strongest podium records out of the entire field. Although he's not got many wins, he's only got a 1 win. That is more than counterbalanced by his 3 second places and single 3rd place. And even then, the only rounds he's gone lower than that is the opening round at Paul Ricard, where he's pretty close to the podium anyway. And 1 non-start at the Nordschleife. But barring that, has had an exemplary season. Liam Blom continues to be the one that's on the defense and the one who is holding the deck of cards. You see him rolling through Shell in his NSX. 186 points, but just 4 away from Grosges. Both of them got 10 penalty points, so they have got a bit of a... well, got a bit of a closely run fight between them. Another curious case that I want to highlight is Friedrich Gehrmar. Now, Gehrmar is 167 points. But if he hadn't got penalties, he'd be leading this championship. He's got 108... after the recount, if you take away penalties, he'd have 199. 199 points, which would put him ahead of even Lindblom if all penalties were nulled. So GMR is really one of the drivers who you have to be watching out for. You have to be looking after. And you can see right there, the proof's in the pudding. He got a 32.6 on his opening run. Only driver to do so on his opening run, get into the 32s, is the driver we just mentioned. And he's got a pretty strong win record to show for it. He's got 3 wins and 2 seconds. The only times outside of that were a did not start and a non-finish. So really, it is a testament to his ability. Here's Chris Bourne, one of the last drivers. In fact, the last driver to put a time down on field. Liam Blom only gets a 35.7, so no doubt that's going to be iterated on. And Bourne in the 118 car is going to be getting himself a 34.2. That's enough for 27th. Wild to think that GMR has still got more in the tank and he's still going to be delivering a little bit harder. We're just observing and watching GMR here. Just watching him push. Grosge's got a 33.2. Liam Blom needs to improve from his 35.7, but he's already made up about 2 seconds on his time. 32.4. The envelope pushed even further by the Lexus driver. Wolfslener and Björklund going to come through. 32.9 and 32.9. They've got the exact same time. Say, Wolfslener's got the exact same time as Hellstrom. Liam Blom's got a 32.945. Very impressive from the top brass hearing. Proven top class drivers. Absolutely brilliant. Here is Grosges. We'll see if he's got a chance to keep attacking it. Grosges is a driver that we know performs well in the race, so he doesn't always lean on qualifying as hard as he maybe could. Lets the race do the talking for him sometimes. But he's still 2/10 up, so it looks like he's on good form. GMR still might be looking to eat away more time here, as is Liam Blom. Remember, a half a second split GMR and Liam Blom in the timing board. But there's still a lot to be considering. Grosges, though, a 33 flat could put him as high as P5, depending on how close to the line he goes. Coming out of Lodge Corner. Let's see if it's a good exit or not. Up to the line here, and it's a 33.1, so gets himself into P8, but look, that field is hotly contested as far as timings go. Wolfslener just pushed himself up to a 32.7. Here is going to be Matthias Lang. Currently a couple of tenths up, as well as multiple racers are going to keep making their way through. 32.8 from Liam Blom. Lang gets himself into P9 with a 33.1. Big swings, big moves, and opportunities aplenty. McNair coming up, but unfortunately only getting a 33.6, so no improvement here from the Iron Brew pilot. Victor Verfart, 33.2 in his Aston Martin. Chris Bourne, sort of the outlier in terms of the field, in terms of cadence, doesn't follow the rest of the others, and has completely separated himself from the rest of the order. P18 as he gets a 33.462. In a way, I think that him not running with the others is somewhat serving to his detriment, as he hasn't really got a frame in order to start improving his time and sort of see how the other drivers are handling certain corners. Grosges still wanting to chomp a bit more time out of this one. He's 3/10 up. He could get himself into a very nice podium spot. 32.4. Oh, 0.742. Sorry. And that's going to put him P3 exactly as planned. Curiously, Liam Blom is not going to be getting, or is he? Because the timing board is somewhat bugged out. He's committed to this lap. Or is he now? Looks like he might be weaving around a little bit, trying to get some grip into his tyres. There's going to be a plethora of drivers all entering the top order. O'Wiggle, Wolfslander, Björklund, Larsen, Grosges, all going to push hard for it in these dying moments of quali. Last 90 seconds. I mean, this kind of puts in perspective just how tight the margins are. And by contrast, that single bronze driver sat in P11, Bowler, that goes to show just how much of a wonder lap that 33.1 was. It was an absolute wonder lap through and through, and couldn't be topped by anyone in his class, let alone a good chunk of silver. Only 2 drivers surpassed him in the silver category, which is a heck of an achievement. And even then, it's only by a couple of tenths. Definitely higher class material if that qualifying is any kind of measurement. Have to wait and see how it ends up manifesting. But for now, Grosges getting yet more time out of his previous qualities. And this is Grosges' strength. He just keeps iterating, constantly improving. Even if he doesn't get the strongest right out of the gate, he's going to keep pushing, grinding, and working on it to where it needs to be. 32.6, although that is going to get undermined somewhat by Wolfslander and Björklund getting a 32.5 .595 and .510 respectively. Johan Larsen going to knock him down a little bit as well. P4 with a 32.632, just 3 milliseconds ahead. There's going to be Marsh along with Larsen, both ducking off the side of the track. Qualifying has officially come to an end, and all that remains on track is Guillemard, Wolfslander, O'Wiggle, and Verfart. Of course, once we see the drivers end up not improving, they are going to retire out immediately rather than go all in on the rest of the lap. Just conserve time, see the session through as quickly as humanly possible. Guillemard is going to try to pull more time, but it looks like an invalidation here. Back we go into the pits, sweeping through at speed before jumping on the brakes rather aggressively. Everyone's going to be peeling in for the most part. It's just O'Wiggle and Verfart. Although Verfart might be actually onto something, as he's a couple of tenths up. Those crucial tenths could make all the difference. That could be a position, could be in the top 10 even. So ends up coming up to the line. No improvement here. Verfart is going to roll in with P13, and that is going to be time done. Oh, there we go. So, taking stock of the order, Guillemard, take a bow. Congratulations. A very strong qualifying from the Lexus. That's going to net him pole position alongside Nicholas Björklund next to him in the 444 car with a .510 and a .595 going to Wolfslander in P3 in the Ferrari. So, it looks like it is a Wolfpack lockout at the podium as far as qualifying goes for the gold class. Moving over to silver, we have a certain Tommy Hellstrom with an absolute sender of a lap. Went from the bottom of the order straight to the penthouse, 32.950, closely followed with a 33.055 here from Pedro Serrano, another very strong contender. Third place is going to be James Payton, championship defender as of current, and a driver certainly worth watching once we head into the race. Finally, looking at bronze, and we can't even begin to talk about bronze without talking about Bowler. An absolute flyer of a lap. He really found that flow state. No mincing words about it. He found that flow state. He nailed it. and a 33.1 is going to put him emphatically ahead of the grid. Next closest is going to be about half a second away, with Craig Holmes in second place. And even then, that was a corker of a lap in its own right, because next one is a 34.2, over 7/10 away from Daniel Groich in P3. And Groich is no slouch. So those two absolutely stole the show as far as bronze is concerned in qualifying. Beautiful relapping, beautiful qualifying from them. So here we go. This is where things start to get interesting now, and I think it's only fair that we do what we usually do. We take our little grid walk, we take our sweet time, we enjoy the moment. AMR stands top of the order, number 208 Lexus, alongside fellow Lexus driver, the 444, Nicholas Björklund. P3 and finishing the podium is 196 Ferrari of Peter Wolfslener, alongside another Lexus, this time the 848 of Johan Larsson. Row 3 is going to be populated by Maximilian Grosges in the 134 Ferrari, closely followed by Loris O'Wiggle, just 22 milliseconds away in the 317 Nismo. Row 4, P7, is going to be Liam Blom, a little bit further down. He's got to fight his way up in his 888 NSX, alongside fellow Pixel Pilots driver Matthias Lang, the 776 Nismo, and then completing our top 10, it's Tommy Hellstrom in a 660 Lexus, Pedro Serrano alongside in the 212 BMW. Dave Marsh is going to be starting on next 10 with the number 27 Honda NSX, and then Wayne Bowler, star of bronze qualifying, is in the 123 Ferrari. Victor Verfart, P13 in the Aston Martin, and alongside him is going to be the Iron Brew Nismo of Colin McNair in the number 13. James Payton, the number 248 McLaren, lines up just behind. And then it's Jimmy Engdahl completing row 6 in the 443 Nismo with his Red Bull livery. Castrol making an appearance as Sean Julius, finally liveried up. The number 993 makes a bold appearance alongside Felix Wildner in his 87 M4. Chris Bourne, alongside Robert Homer, is going to complete your next 10. The 118 Ferrari lines up against the number 6 McLaren, beautifully adorned in their separate liveries. Thunderbirds tribute, Thunderbirds are go. It's Craig Holmes, number 21. 109 Audi is alongside the 84 Lamborghini of in-house livery designer guru Paul Hamby. Lynn Artis, the number 12 Nismo, lines up P23 alongside Sean O'Neill, the 333 Mustang. Classic liveries, and speaking of classic, it's Eero, the 992 Porsche. That livery has remained steadfast, but it's just as terrifying as day one. Simon Eade, the number 25 Porsche, lines up alongside, or just ahead, of Daniel Groich in the P27 position, and Alex North, the number 28 spot, current championship leader for bronze, so he's got a bit of work to do to defend it from the likes of those qualifiers up ahead. Mike Vauxhall in the 42 Lamborghini lines up against Sean Murphy in the 118 McLaren. And then last few spots, we have Randy Zimmer in the pit lane, although reasoning unconfirmed. The 141 Ferrari is back there, while Stuart Holmes, the number 2 BMW, is up here. Finally, it's going to be Peter Smith, the 113 McLaren, alongside Craig Morrison in the number 213 BMW M4. And the last few cars we have, it's Craig Niesbet in the 331 Nismo, Rich Arscombe in the number 76 Aston Martin, and then Roger Dismukes in the 420 Porsche. That is our order, folks, and with a hefty amount of racing about to get underway, a reminder of the rules. Do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect £200. Nope, just kidding. It's a 60-minute shootout. Racers have one pit stop. They are required to refuel, but you always get the option of tyres if you so choose. You do not have to take tyres. That is a strategic gamble you'll make all on your lonesome. Drivers typically aim for the halfway point, or as close to as possible, serve for strategy choices. So at around the 25-minute mark is when we see the last pit stops, or 20 minutes if you're Roger Dismukes. And then the first pit stops tend to roll in around the 35-minute mark. Any further and you risk running out of fuel, or your tyres completely cooking and burning out. So, with all that being said and done, folks, let us know any particular drivers you're looking forward to seeing all on that track. And all the best we can hope for as everyone's going to be lining up on the grid, is hoping that we don't see the demise of any drivers heading into this first lap, because we all know those first couple of laps of racing, they're exhilarating, but by Lord, are they terrifying. Absolutely petrifying if you're not prepared mentally and physically for the challenge that is about to come. So I'm rooting for everyone on this course, if nothing else for survival. Because the last thing you want to see is anyone's race ended by a bit of a nightmare. But as we head into round 8 of 10, track is about to go hot here for 60 minutes of racing here at Oulton Park. It's season 12 of SIMSeniors. It's a beautiful day, and the race is go. We are a go. The track is hot. We are away immediately. Strong defense from Gayamar. He lays claim to the apex of the corner, and here is going to be Mosh smashing into the side of Hellstrom, and all Hellstrom breaks loose. He gets teared into the grass. He's going to get the rear kicked up, and it's cars everywhere. I can't even keep up with this. The helicopter can't keep up with this. It's multiple cars strewn across the grass. It is anarchy in these first laps, ladies and gentlemen. There's still cars recovering and limping out onto the surface, as it's all going to be kicking off right out the gate. You've got multiple cars spinning again and getting into quite the argy-bargy as you get out into the island bend. It's all going to be up in flames. It's all up in flames. Even more cars now heading off into the dirt, into the grass. Simon Aid losing the rear of the car. I don't even know what to say. It is absolute chaos. That back of the pack is riddled with orange triangles. And we have already hemorrhaged 3 drivers. And it's not even the end of lap 1, ladies and gentlemen. It's ridiculously chaotic out there. Those who had their predictions may feel very vindicated. However, the point stands right now is that we have so many drivers who have been casualty or privy to the chaos that just unfolded. At the bottom of it all, bottom of the order, got a couple of cars who are just still limping by. I mean, for example, you look at Homer, he's literally limping the car, having to nurse that thing in the hopes of getting back. Race could be as good as over. Many a driver, Hamby and Holmes, remain in the pits, but effectively, as it currently stands, we have 32 on-track racers. 31, really, because Homer is in no state to continue fighting unless he gets to that pit ASAP. There's channeling his quantum teleportation powers. My incident log can't even keep up with it. Let's wind the clocks back a bit and let's actually see what happened. This is Wayne Bowler's perspective. You can see concertina effect. Serrano gets pushed out to the grass. Meanwhile, tries to rejoin. Serrano taps the rear of Bowler, which slams straight into another racer, and it's all gone Pete Tong from there. Serrano once again making contact with Bowler, as it's all going to be anarchy. So that was one side of the incident. I mean, we had a second torrid situation when you had more incidents following that. I mean, you can see just coming off of the side of it, multiple cars. As you got Eid, got Serrano just a little bit further up ahead, and they ask him squeezing Diz because more drivers going to be careening off the course. There's 2, there's 3, there's going to be collections all across the field. There was one that's completely stopped in the middle. So where do you even take that? That was just chaotic as an understatement. Now, I'd like to hope that we got everything out of our system. We had 208-second pit stop for Randy Zimmer, and he is eventually back on the track. Homer is going to be returning, hopefully, to the racing, but he is still limping his car home. He's still on that initial lap and barely able to run his machine. I will say, I dread to look at the Discord. I refuse to look at the Discord. But we are down now to 32 drivers. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to reiterate that. We are down from 37 starters to 32. We are on lap 3. We are in the midst of completing lap 3 right now, and we have dropped 5 cars. I don't think I can really press the majority, the gravity of that. Either way, you're either winning big or you're winning nothing. You win some, you lose some, or in this case, that's taken to either extreme. You're gaining big time in terms of points if you're still out on the track and still in a competitive position, especially relative to your class. For example, Peyton currently is standing tall as the leader of the field in silver. Bowler, unfortunately, has been submitted down to P5, as Groich is going to be the one who actually profits the most out of the first lap's chaos running. Yeah, unfortunately, some drivers couldn't make it back, couldn't see it tenable to continue. We'll see how the rest of the field fares, and now that we've had a little bit of a change up, here is Eero along the side of Randy Zimmer. They're both drag racing each other as we now head through and up into the island bend. Eero is just going to get the nose out and get ahead. In fact, we're going to see a bit more of a move here as there is Dismukes peeling off to the side. I do wonder what is going on, because we have got some drivers who are running on pace, still fighting as normal. But at the same time, they've got some drivers who are clearly operating on borrowed time. Isn't much left before they have to head back into the pit. Here's to see how the rest of the field is getting on. It is going to be Grosges on the back of P4. Johan Larsson currently stands in his way. He needs to get a move on because Lindblom is also waiting in the wings. And of course, he wants to get up in positions pretty rapidly. One can only hope that the other drivers who faltered here tonight or were made victims are made whole by the following 2 rounds. The two of Foxall and Lenatus make brief contact. They make very brief contact. But they still keep each other honest as we head through this next couple of minutes. This phase of the race is deathly crucial. It can make or break any good race here. Your initial setup, that first 10 to 15 minutes, that sets the tone. If you're making up time, you're fighting for positions, you're gaining positions, that is always a good omen. That's going to carry you through to the end. But inversely, if you are dropping quickly and right out from the start, once those drivers separate out, it is game over. Nothing that you can realistically do. So let's see how the drivers are fighting for their positions and fighting for their progression in this championship. Here is Lindblom, hot on the heels of Loris O'Wiggle, fellow Pixel Pilots driver. We see a little bit of a skate on the rear axle there from the other Nismo, as the 317 is on the defense. Now O'Wiggle has a bit of a choice to make here. You've got Grosges about a second away, and you've got Lindblom a couple of tenths behind. Both of you are on the Pixel Pilots team. So are you going to be using Lindblom to push yourself forward, or are we going to see a bit of a changeover between these two? And while still racing hard but fair, ultimately Lindblom gets ahead. Which are we going to see? I guess we can only wait to find out. Minor contact between Morrison and Arscombe, but hopefully those two are completely fine and out of it all. Grosges will be pushing hard just up ahead, but has been reeled in. Wiggle has managed to pull the gap away by about half a second. And that gap pull is pretty important because if he can do it, what's to say the others can't? Meanwhile, Verfart and McNair drag racing each other through the first corner. Verfart has the inside line here. Is going to have a little bit of a squeeze. McNair has to double take and has to push out almost to the dirt completely. Luckily, he holds his nerve, he holds his throttle pedal down, and he gets himself firmly ahead of the Aston Martin. Peyton is going to be the next one who makes a meaningful challenge. Here's coming back to the Aston Martin here. But meanwhile, Lindblom coming out of Shell Corner and into Britain's is going to try and challenge for the spot. Just can't do it, though. Cannot get too aggressive. Because as soon as he tees up a move, they head into the chicane. One of them's got to back out. Chances are it's going to be the attacker. Because the defender has the right to the space more than the one who's coming up. That doesn't mean squeeze out. Leave reasonable space if you're reasonably alongside. But in a fight between these two, as they go into a tight chicane, the sensible choice is to hold back. It's only the sensible thing to do because you run a high risk of taking yourselves both out of the race. Not worth it. Not worth the compromise. Nartus and O'Neill briefly having a bit of a scurry together. Those two fighting for P4 in their respective group, their respective class. Wayne Bowler's going to be getting a local yellow. Looks like he briefly went off the side of the track, but quickly recovered. I'm not getting any immediate flags to suggest something happened. We'll continue to monitor. Back here at the office, Neesbet is going to be running slow coming out of Deer Leap, and that is going to be Bowler's gain. Absolutely something they can play to advantage. There's Larson on the defense from Grosges, who our camera is targeting now. Still going to be giving it his all. But we're coming up to the 15-minute mark, so at this stage, a lot of drivers have started to space out. We have got some who are still hotly committed to the attack, to the offensive. But now a lot of racers are just looking to establish a stable home base before they go attacking you. Boris and Dismakes, they have a little bit of a trade further away. Dismakes dropping a lot of time in the number 420 car. Verfart is hot on the heels of McNair, just in the same way that Lindblom is on the heels of O'Wiggle. McNair, they're still going to be scurrying across, challenging each other. I wonder if McNair's got anything on the counter. Try to counter-attack much as he like, but Aston might be just ahead of him here, with little options. Lindblom, meanwhile, still on the back of O'Wiggle. We're just keeping an eye on some of the deltas here in a hope that we'll be able to ascertain exactly how this one's going to play out. As it currently stands, coming up to the 15-minute mark, things have shaken out a little bit differently. Gamer, Björklund, Wolfslener are your top three for gold, with silver going to Peyton, Wildner, and Julius. Quite a shake-up by comparison in that class, and then it's Groisch, Foxall, and North, first, second, and third. Unfortunately, we have seen the demise of Bowler's lead. as he has been pushed down to P20, also known as P4, in the bronze class. Quite a detriment, quite a knock down a couple of pegs. So it's only going to be a matter of time before Bowler tries to catch up again. Gonna see Holmes make quite the move as he gets an attack and a successful overtake on Aid and Dismakes here. I wonder if something happened to Dismakes' car, because he has dropped a lot of time very quickly. Is he involved in some of those early incidents? I'm not seeing him in the logs, but the logs have now, at this point, cut off the first minute of the race. So I'm not able to capture anything further from that initial incident. Or set of incidents, more accurately. I do feel for everyone who didn't quite make the race start. And those who didn't make it past lap 2, to be perfectly honest. Because you might as well be in the same boat. Though, more so bad for those who made the start and then get crashed out. Or have to retire within that first lap. Because that's just as, if not more brutal of a punishment than anything else. There's that false hope almost. False hope of being able to make it. Getting that sort of rude awakening. Well, not awakening. That almost denial. The way it's got to sting. Smoothly does it for our drivers here. They are making their way through the chicanes, snaking through with relative ease. A little bit unsettled there from Grosges in the background, but he's just pushing his lines a little bit further, it seems like. Doesn't want to yield or potentially lose any key position to the opposition. There's Johan Larsson, continuing to squeeze on Wolfslenner, for example. May share a team and they may share a crest, but they share no love when it comes to this racetrack. Julius, meanwhile, holding his line and holding firm into P3. Might even be challenging on P2. We'll have to see how this goes. Lindblom, still not making the move up despite his patience, and multiple laps running behind Mr. Wiggle. Going to be a close march. But things are looking stable. And really, this is what the drivers want. We have Sean O'Neill in a bit of a twist going into the pits now. Now, this is a very aggressive move, shall we say. You're not going to have enough life by the end of the race to keep that going smoothly. It's just not going to be that viable. So I'm questioning what the strategy is from O'Neill, unless there's some kind of penalty that he's trying to alleviate. If he's genuinely going into the pits this early, I'm sure he'll be able to make it, or he wouldn't do it. But I think it's a high-risk strategy that I question its ability to pay off. He is going to come out right in the heat of the gold class traffic on the next lap up. In fact, you can just see him in the background there as we got Björklund and Wolfslenner sweeping their way through. O'Neill is going to tuck in just behind. Like that was about 60 seconds in the pit lane in total.
But that's kind of the benchmark that we are looking for. Contact between O'Wiggle and Lindblom, which means that things are starting to heat up. Not going to see any nice gloves remaining on. It's time to fight. It's really going to go here now. Out of Shell, heading into Britain's. Lindblom remains in the chase. Wolfslenas catching up to Björklund. Grosges catching up to Larsen. Lindblom catching onto Wiggle. All going to be in close contention for their positions and not going to be yielding an inch. As we then head now into Hislops and then Nickelbrook in for the others. Wolfslener is going to be still hot to the heels of Björklund. You can see from that timing board, but Lindblom is actually peeling away a little bit. There's a bit of a gap that forms. Isuri heads into the pits relatively early as well, about the 20-minute in mark, the 40 minutes to go. Heads in for a 60-second pit stop now. Risky strategy. I wonder if it'll pay off. Here's going to be Wolfslener on the chase. Björklund in his sights for P2. As long as he can keep that proximity, he can build up the pressure into an eventual mistake. Aggressively does it. Blue flags briefly being swung as you have some of the other drivers who are now coming out of the pits too. Here is Sean Murphy, albeit with a much longer pit stop than his competitors at about 114 seconds. Surrey will be coming out with a longer one too. That's going to be about 75. "75 seconds on the clock is no joke, because that is 15 seconds slower than the next driver. That has put him several key seconds away from position. Once all the dust settles, once all the pit stops are made, he will be paying the price for it. He will see the damage that that longer pit stop will do. But for now, I'm not saying that ignorance is bliss, but he hasn't quite got the full information to warrant the reaction that that time loss is going to command. When you combine that with some of the akin to Wreckfest level shenanigans that occurred, have to be one that is certainly down in the history books for SimSeniors, one of the most chaotic lap ones that we have seen in these mainline championships for a while. A good long while, folks. Lindblom heads into the pits and he's hoping to maybe get an undercut, but again, I extend the same question. When we are this far ahead of the equal length window, one has to wonder, what's their game? What's the game plan? Is this even a viable strategy? Find out this and more next time. SimSeniors Ball Z. Lindblom is going to be, as a result of his pit stop, hemorrhaging positions, dropping as far as P20 and probably further as we see more cars now crossing up to pass the line. It's going to be a soon-to-be P20. Oh no! He's just going to jump ahead of Niesbed. He's going to stay at P20. Almost thinking that he was going to be behind the Niesmo, and that would have been trouble, but he's just been able to beat it in the nick of time. In fact, going with a very fast pit stop at that, with about a 50-second time in total. Extremely quick. Considering all the other pit stops, for the most part, have ranged from about 60 seconds to several minutes in the case of damage. 210 seconds is our fastest pit stop, courtesy of Robert Homer, who's currently in last. Given the amount of coaxing the car he had to do across the track, and inevitably the amount of damage as a result, I think that warrants the long pit stop time. The question now becomes, with 25 minutes under the belts of these drivers, where are they setting up for? Very easy to stand here and say
that the racers are exactly as far as they need to be, and they don't want to really fight much more. But when you're in close proximity to another car,
it stands to reason that you'll want to at least give it a shot. And at the end of the day, these are racers. They're not here to stand by and idly hot lap. They're here to fight, to metaphorically joust on the racetrack. Want to show their stuff. So as we see here from the likes of Sean Holmes trying to work in order to catch up and gain time. The operating question for him is, how much time do I need? 3.6 seconds? Can I make that? Those are the kind of questions that these racers need to answer. You compare that with the likes of Simon Eade, right to the back of Randy Zimmer. It's a lot more reasonable to say that he'll be able to get that overtake done. Johan Larsson is going to head into the pits, P8. Where will he come out? We'll find out in due course. If I had to hazard a guess, it will be around the P15 to P18 mark. And that, though, a little bit dicey. Simon Eade. Under a bit of risk here. Rich Arscombe getting himself P29. And heading into and hopefully out of the pit lane now. You can see, yep, he's going to be on the exit here. He's just going to be sneaking into P29 on the exit of the pit lane. My microphone spring playing up a little bit. So if you hear any clunk or clang, that is exactly what's going on. Big wobble there on the rest over. This is what we were saying in qualifying. This is why you've got to be careful and why you've got to preserve your momentum, because if you're making sudden direction changes with the track at this level of undulation and sweeping and rolling, you are very susceptible to losing a lot of grip very quickly. I do see a suggestion in the chat that ghost cars should be on for the first lap of every race, and while I understand the sentiment and the logic, that just creates a situation where you then just get anarchy on lap 2. Because no one is disrupted by anyone else, no one makes any meaningful gaps and position changes, and as a result, when they unghost, it is just the same but in lap 2. A lap after, where there is set to be a chance for that major change. I mean, more to the point, Oulton Park is a small track. It is a very small track. This is the kind of place where you would see not full-scale GT3s, but you'd be more accustomed to seeing, I don't know, Formula Fords, of all things. It's not designed 37 full-scale GT3s. It's a bit much. There, you'll be seeing Clio Cups, MX-5s, kit cars. This is the kind of home for them. But say full-scale GT3s at this quantity, you are inevitably going to run into trouble, and I think that's just a fact of this track. It's just the way that it is. You can't really do much about that. And I'm not saying that it can't work. Please don't take this as me saying that these cars on this track can't work. Because I think in the right conditions, any tight track, any sort of configuration of this nature, in the right conditions, can be absolutely brilliant. But in this case, I think at least with the way that ACC handles these machines and the way that it all comes together, it is sometimes just as much a recipe for disaster as it is a recipe for brilliant racing. I mean, right here, that was a nice, clean execution from Engdahl to get himself up into P12. Gets himself past Vauxhall. See a few more cars now heading into the pits as we are officially right at the halfway mark. Question is if the leaders are going to be following the equal length, equal stop rule. Looks like Guillemot is going to be taking that gambit, taking that chance. Crazily enough, we can see Lindblom is actually behind Grosges and Larsen, so a bit of a question mark being pushed onto the strategy here. Grosges, in fact, on the defensive, as Johan Larsen is within half a second. Simon with a very brief local yellow, and oh, actually make that quite a deserved local yellow as he is stuck on the grass briefly, almost looking like he had been completely banished and removed off to the side. He does manage to recover, albeit in P19. In the top end of things, we have Guillemot just coming out of the pits, as we see Björklund, Wagner, Lang, Reich, Engdahl all come in around the same time. Although they are going to be sweeping through in course. Björklund, is he going to be able to just beat? Looks like he has. Just ahead of the likes of Grosges and Larsen. So he's going to retain a nice, healthy P5. As far as things stand. Technically P2, because everyone above in the top three, Wolfslener, O'Wiggle, McNair, they have not pitted in yet. But they still have a strategic element to recover. Smoothly does it here as we start to get into that crucial phase. We have Wolfslener and O'Wiggle now in the pits. McNair opting to make the choice to stay out. As we can see, Peyton is going to come through. Julius is also coming through. It'll be a bit of a wild run as we all get back onto the track. Foxhall, though, what's happened to Foxhall? Let's clock things back a bit. Just un momento, por favore, as we sweep our way out of Druids, heading into Lodge Corner. I think we've seen a textbook situation that can happen here at Oulton Park, which is just having the rear cut loose before you get on the decline, and then as you go into Deer Leap, the thing just spins. It can easily happen to even the best. We see Dismukes just going into the grass as he briefly is trying to renegotiate himself onto the track ahead of Clay Hill. Here we have it. Now, most of the drivers have taken their pit stops. We're on board with McNair right now, because I'm just trying to see how he is managing a bit of wheel spin, little bit of a slide towards the edge, and in fact you can see a bit of slip angle starting to be incorporated into his driving style as things inevitably wear down. There's going to be Linata finally heading into the pits, but quickly, as you can see, hemorrhaging positions, going all the way down. Lindblom is effectively P7 after all of this, but he's in very close quarters with a lot of other cars throughout this order. So you've got O'Wiggle, Larsen, Grosges, and Björklund all within fairly decent proximity to one another. And that could be the ace in the hole for our current championship defender to get himself a bit of a leg up heading into the final 2 rounds. His main rival, Grosges, is going to be P4 in that order. As McNair has yet to pit, he's effectively exempt from this count-up. Grosges effectively P4, O'Wiggle is P6, Beamblom's P7. Gaimar is going to be firmly up and away though, with multiple seconds to his name. And it is his race to lose at this point. Greg Holmes now on the back of Randy Zimmer as well, seeing as things are going to heating up in the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. McNair finally heads into the pits, and with that, the order is sealed and the championship fight at the top could very well be wide open once again. Only sole exceptions from pitting in are Craig Niesbet and, well, do you even need to know the name? He's well known for his very late stints. It's going to be Roger Dismiquez. He's always committed to at least the 20-minute mark on most of these tracks, so we know how this goes by now. He really does eke it out, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We have seen it work to good effect just as much as it not quite play out. It's a good 50-50. Holmes and Zimmer once again checking in as they head into the next chicane. Before that is Hislops, then Knickerbrook, but can't quite keep the proximities, lost several tenths of a second, and that is maybe going to be what does it, as we see other drivers do much of the same. Here is O'Wiggle, really tight to the back of Larson right now, running very aggressively. There is a yellow flag coming in for Roger Dismiquez. In fact, no, so Greg Morrison is going to be in the dirt completely. So let's clock back just a little bit further. So it's going to be first, it was Dismiquez just a minute before, but he wobbled off the field. But then it's going to be, annoyingly, it won't let me switch back cams. Still not let me switch back cams. Trying to look at Morrison here. Won't let me. I think he's disconnected. That's why. Morrison fully disconnected. We're going to try one more time to see if, there we go. We're going to see exactly what happened here from Morrison's perspective now. After a couple of attempts at trying, so just oh yep, that is going to happen to the best of them. Just a little bit too much, and is going to slam into the wall there. So down to now 31 cars. Going to look a little bit dicey here. A tiny bit of a wobble for O'Wiggle. We know how hard he pushes that car. We've seen him multiple times fight on the edge of oversteer. Tonight will be no different. Head now into lap 25 here. 24 laps completed. 24 laps completed. And, oh boy, are things about to spice up in the next 10 minutes. I think if we're going to see any fights, it's going to be right here, and we're going to be right around the fight for the podium. Grosges on the back of Björklund, for example, is going to be something that starts boiling over with the next couple of laps. Much to be said about Lindblom as well, trying to continue to get past O'Wiggle, with O'Wiggle doing a mighty defensive job against his fellow Pixel Pilots teammate. As things pan towards a bit of a stalemate, we can see just up ahead there is going to be Craig Holmes peeling off to the side, observing blue flags, and almost getting completely out of sorts going into the grass, trying to respect and observe the blue flags. So a little bit risky, ironically, despite trying to let the other cars safely by. There was definitely a bit of an element of risk on that one. So just sweeping his way through as he comes out of Old Hall and into the Cascades now. We see a bit of a situation there as Randy Zimmer. A little bit dicey there as he almost came into contact with a couple of the cars trying to pass by. Lindblom barely avoids him. See, there is defensive again from Loris. They're all neatly compacted together going around Shell's corner. Lead does it. Johan Larsson and Loris O'Wiggle. Going to be Sean Murphy in the middle of it all. Number 180 briefly ducking out of the way, making sure that there is no interference from himself. This could be an opening of an opportunity, though. Larson trying to square up to Grosges as we head into lap 27. Now, the problem is, me getting to this stage of the race, one of two things can happen. You either have a situation where the drivers continue to bide their time, or even try to just cut their losses and seal their position in race. Two, which can be a little bit more concerning, is that you see the drivers start to get a bit more desperate, start to make more moves. While this sounds exciting on the surface, this is indicative of a driver who's lost their patience. Know that the wall of time running quickly headfirst into the end. So it's all about restraint. Knowing when to attack, but also knowing when to hold back. That's just as much, if not more, of a challenge. If you can force your opponent into a mistake and then capitalize, that is 10 times easier than actually having to fight tooth and nail for the spot. We saw Daniel Groch lose quite a significant chunk of time. But let's see, as he goes through the replay out of Old Hall Corner, what exactly happened. My money is that Cascades, he just ran a little bit wide, and it got a little bit dicey. Oh, kicking the rear right up into the air. Luckily regaining control fairly fast as he crossed over the track very briefly, and getting back onto power just before the island. Counter. It is Björklund, Grosges, Larsson, Wiggle, Lindblom all together once more. All going for a bit of an attack. As we have Dismakers finally into the pits now, with just about 45 minutes under his belt. Dismakers continues to push the boundaries of pit lane technology by continually extending and extending his initial stints to hitherto discovered lengths. The car dipping out of the way to make sure that they do not impact the race situation. Here is going to be Randy Zimmer as the car pans around. He spins his car round, having gone completely backwards out of the island bend, trying to rejoin onto the racing surface and having to wait multiple key seconds. And Rosquez will be on the chase, though continues to be on the chase after such a long time. Björklund is going to be on the defensive as much as he can and has done a very good job of that. It's simply now about damage limitation and making sure that you are not going to be left out to dry when we get to the final 10 minutes. 5 minutes. That's still 3.5 laps. Larson might even be looking for a bite of the same cherry as he comes up very close to the back of Maximilian. Very close indeed. Almost making contact. Luckily, just having it be avoided. Now it would be a major issue. Any contact between any of these cars at this stage. Here is defensive, and here is Loris. He goes and pulls the trigger on the move. The two practically stick together. They cut the chicane. They cut through his slops. They retain position, and in fact, Wiggle comes out on top. That is certainly going to be scrutinised by the stewards team. I have zero shadow of a doubt in my mind, as in the same breath, Lang is going to get an overtake on Leenblom, albeit looks like much cleaner and short-lived as he ducks straight into the grass, cuts ahead of Leenblom in his NSX and can't get by. Seems like the Pixel Pilots over here, this team, I don't know what's happened, but it's all gone into chaos. It feels like they just pulled a sort of multi-aspect attack plan on the further up end of the field. One of the steps didn't work out, and it's all just cascaded like a snowball from there. A failed overtake then becomes chaos further down. Leenblom being now displaced to P8 behind his teammate, and they lost significant time to boot because of a poor line. I think this has certainly been a backfire, with the exception of O'Wiggle, but even then, I'll not be surprised if we have the stewards scrutinising that one very heavily. Simultaneously, Randy Zimmer, he's off the track, he's lost the car coming into Chellor's corner. Let's actually wind the clocks back just a little bit and see exactly what happened. We saw him not too long ago having an incident. So, having just recovered from that one, we head into the Cascades. He loses it on the curb and completely kicks the car into the outer grass, or inner grass, depending on where you are in the corner. That is all she wrote. P27 is where the Ferrari now resides, so known in the group as P8. Wiggle is going to get a second bite of the cherry, but Verfart, teammate for Leenblom, is going to be actually challenging on fellow Pixel Pilots driver. Going to be mounting quite the aggressive. Part of me wonders if this is something that Verfart has been waiting for, because we've seen him bare his teeth when it comes to the attacking side of the race. We have absolutely seen him go all in, bangs bared, and is not afraid to get his hands dirty in a fight.
Even if the proximity doesn't quite hold, it's going to be a bit of a question to answer, especially as we get into the next and final 10 minutes. Situation may be looking dire for some, but Zimmer back into the pits. Although his pit timer has stopped, curiously enough. I wonder what's going on with the Ferrari, as he is 3 pit stops in, no doubt in part due to incident recovery. see Verfart continue to establish some major pressure on Leenblom in P8. Drop down a couple of seconds to Matthias Lang, so there is a heck of a gap to overcome if you want any chance of fighting for further position. So this, I stress it once more, looks like it is Guillemar's race to lose. He stands firmly in P1 with over 15 seconds of time gap. It's a ridiculous margin. We have seen the field still give it their everything, 110%. Loris looking at a chance on Grosges in the same breath that he be on Björklund. It's no for a sneeze. Excuse me. Didn't quite catch that with the cough button. So let's take a quick stock of our top 3 in every class as we end the final 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. It's Guillemar who leads your order, having just completed lap 32, going on to 33. Wolfslenner is about 15 to 17 seconds behind. He just rounds out Lodge Corner as we speak and has hold a firm P2 alongside Björklund, who is in P3. But that P3, you can see just from the background, is under constant threat at this time. So this may not be a situation that lasts forever. Maybe one that quickly devolves to something far scarier. Meanwhile, looking over at the silver class, and it's James Payton who retains the lead, practically undeterred as 16 seconds separates him and second place runner Felix Wildner. While not as much of a margin, in fact, you can see him somewhat in the background there, but Sean Julius just rounding his way out and through Druid's Corner is going to be your third place runner. And then looking over to the bronze racers, it's going to be a bit of a change of pace as we see Bowler has in fact reclaimed his position. Fully reclaimed it and is looking mighty fast. The number 1, 2, 3 Ferrari is showing his pace here at Oulton Park as Groich is going to be in second and North is going to be in third. Looks like a bit of a casualty coming out of Britain's. Here's going to be Eero losing the car through the chicane. Let's wind the clocks back and see exactly how it went down. So he comes out of Shell Oils, heading into the chicane, heading into Britain's. Sweeps his way through and, oh, just a bit too much of the curb there. Spinning his way around, quickly trying to dip to the inside, make sure he's off the racing line before recomposing himself. I've got to say, very good damage control there, because that could have very easily become a multi-car incident like we saw at the start. Very easily have become a bit of a nightmare. See a beautiful procession going through that corner. Even if they aren't all fighting tooth and nail side by side with each other, the great thing about these drivers racing right now is they are still fighting just as hard as if they were next to each other, because they're all constantly trying to gauge each other's moves, see where they can gain or lose time, and ultimately, they're trying to read their opponent and be able to calculate how they would get past. Everyone has their own driving style. Whether you have a certain way of leaning on the brakes, a certain way of heading your car into corners, you might want to snap it and then correct for oversteer. You might want to lay onto the steering more progressively. You might want to brake quite late and claim the apexes ahead of your opponents. Either way, you have a driving style, and it's a driving style that you have to learn, and your opponents try to read and predict. The art of overtaking is just as much about being faster as it is knowing how to apply that speed in order to force them into a position where they don't have a choice. Only operating choice in their successful overtake is that they yield. Or they don't have a chance to counter in the first place because you forced them into a mistake they can't recover from in time. Those are your two overtaking options for the most part. We'll see which one Grosges subscribes to as he continues his strong run of proximity against Björklund. Wonder how they're going to be playing this one, considering that Björklund is P5 in the championship and Grosges is P2. Could we see a bit of team play to get the Wolfpack cars further up? Or is it going to remain firmly static? There could very much be a case to dethrone Wiggle out of the podium. And that most certainly will be the case with Gaimar looking at such a massive points haul. But those penalties continue to bite him in the neck. We officially have 3 laps worth of time left now, ladies and gentlemen, and with an average lap time at the moment of a 1:33.5, it's safe to say that we are going to be finishing on around lap 38. I think that's the fair assumption in this situation, and I think that's the one that's going to be the one that comes to pass. See how these races like to play this out. But we don't have the luxury of time. Grosges, if he wants to pull the trigger on a move, he practically needs to do it now. Nothing that stings more than being on the cusp of a move and not being able to execute it in time. So Grosges needs to make a decision. Needs to make a firm decision. Grosges might be within an inch of an attacking move, but it doesn't look like he's going for it. In fact, this has kind of drawn Loris into the fold, and maybe even Larson if this keeps up. Loris has a chance to gain some major position here, as does Larson. They're both on the cusp of a major attack. So we have 1 minute 30 seconds or just under on the clock here, which means that it is effectively, unless Gaimar is going to pull some magic, he is on the final lap. Final lap. It all. I don't think there's going to be the last-ditch effort. It looks like a lot of the drivers have opted for the safe option, that being to retain their positions and play it safe until the very end. Although saying that, looks like we have Björklund and Grosges really coming to blows, albeit very briefly. 30 seconds remain on the clock, and it looks like we are actually going to be having one more lap out of all of this, as Guillemot is actually within chance, within time, to be able to bless us with another lap of this racetrack. So I'm going to hold my hands up and say I'm wrong. It's going to be lap 39 that we actually finish on. 39 laps completed. And there you go. There is the call from race control. So we are on the final lap as of now. And Guillemot, having just crossed into the 39th lap, was the trigger. So despite the timer being officially elapsed, it's not until the leader crosses the line on the lap he is currently on that the race is officially concluded. So one more rodeo, one last chance for everyone to give it their best shot. As we see Grosges getting very close to the back of Björklund. We see Verfart still homing in hard on Lindblom, who has had a bit of a difficult time today. You can see, in fact, he goes very wide out of the edge of the circuit there. Very much a dicey situation here for the NSX driver. It is one that may be recoverable. Certainly is going to put him in an interesting position for the last two rounds. But there is one driver who has had a near flawless race, and that is the black and white Lexus that stands before you now, heading his way into Druid's Corner. Guillemot has had an immense form, and that shows no signs of breaking. We had him winning last time out, and he's going to be winning again this time. Friedrich Guillemot, take a bow as the winner of Oulton Park, also known as Round 8 of SIMSeniors Season 12. What a show, and what a performance. Albeit not one that we monitored much, it was that clean and that effective. But we didn't exactly need to. Here's going to be P2. There's Peter Wolfslanner crossing his way across the line. And in the 196 car, it's quite a good feat. Closely challenged in the end is going to be Björklund, who holds on to the bitter end. And the very last run there, Perron himself is going to secure in P3. Grosges just barely in P4. No Wiggle completing your top 5. Johan Larsson is going to be in P6 along with Lang crossing over the line. Lindblom in P8. And Verfart in P9, including your top 10 with Colin McNair. So running solid right to the bitter end. Following on from that is now the silver winners, and it's going to be James Payton who is taking that top honours. And now sweeping through is going to be Felix Waldner and Sean Julius, running in very close quarters to one another. Second and third firmly awarded here for the two, completing your podium there. And then finally, Wayne Bowler, amazing recovery, qualifying, then turned into a torrid first half of the race, but he's somehow managed to pull it all back. And Groich, along with North, are going to be in second and third, concluding our full order of the podiums for each class. And that is where we have quite an interesting rounds 9 and 10 to go, folks. I personally can't wait. Unfortunately, we did say a lot of goodbyes, and that was going to be for the likes of Robert Homer, who's in the pits, of course. Major incident and major of chaos coming in from him there. Hellstrom, Marsh, Hamby, Holmes, and Bourne also had to concede their presence on the racetrack, so meaning that they were not able to score, not able to bring it home. But that is where we are going to be concluding things for today, ladies and gentlemen, because that is where we have to look forward to the future. In terms of said future, it's going to be none other than the Nürburgring, but it is the actual GP layout. So where we saw it as part of a segment of the Nordschleife the last time we came here to Germany, it is unfortunately for some, but fortunately for others, going to be the sole focus of round 9. And that is going to immediately be followed by the Red Bull Ring. round off the season. It's as always a pleasure to be here on the air for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next run holds and what the next race holds for us as we come to the conclusory parts of the season here. Of course, if you liked what you saw, be sure to give the stream a bit of a thumbs up, because that always pushes us forward in the algorithm, gets us in front of more people, more eyes, the better, the more we can do this. And if you want to consider supporting us further, you can look to the likes of Patreon, etc., as well as the Facebook group and the Discord. But that's all for now, folks. It's been a brilliant round and a brilliant night. Once again, see you very soon next time. Same time next week for the Nürburgring GP. Good night, everyone, and take care.